Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Wine by the Bay TV. I'm your host, George Bechara. Let's get business out of the way. We are sponsored by the Goosehead Insurance Company, the Bechara Agency, which is me. These are some perilous times right now. We've got all kinds of issues, foreign and domestic. Let's talk about money. I mean, the producer price index is 9.6% for January. CPI is 7.5%, and your wages are only up 3.25%. So you're losing money, even though you feel like you're making money. So what do we do about something like that? Well, what we do is we structure a whole life policy for you with a high cash value. And we help you to save money without using a traditional bank giving you 0.5% if you're lucky. With war coming in Europe and these kinds of things, you never know what's going to happen. But just so you have a little information, you remember the 2008, 2009 financial crisis. Pretty much everybody does. Did you know that over 450 banks went out of business? Guess how many insurance companies went out of business? 0. That's a big goose egg. So if you want something safe that's going to grow over time, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, then get a hold of me. Go down in the description box. You'll find a link. Give me your information. We'll set up a time to talk for free, and let's see what we can do to secure your long-term financial future. Okay, there's only one way to do it, and that's slow and steady. And the way to do it slow and steady, in my opinion, is through whole life insurance. Okay, so that's it for the lecture. Sorry about that. But things are a little weird these days, and it's tough to be tough on people, but, life is being tough. So let's have a little fun. So we've been all over the world lately. Excuse me. Excuse me. We've been all over the world lately. We've been in Italy, we've been in Portugal, we've been in Argentina. So I thought it was time to come back to California and do a couple of wines from Napa, Sonoma, that kind of thing. So I chose a white wine and a red wine, as we typically do. I chose a Chardonnay. This is the 2019 Trefethen Chardonnay from Oak Knolls up in Napa, California. Okay, and this one is the Louis Martini Cabernet from Sonoma County. Okay, I chose these wines because Trefethen and Louis Martini are on a lot of wine lists, and people starting to go out to dinner again. So I was thinking these are things that you can find in a wine shop and things that you can find on a restaurant wine list. So I think we should get started right away. The little wine ass trophy is here. It's backwards, unfortunately. All of the holiday accoutrements are gone. So we're going to get right into it. So as I was saying, the first wine is the Trefethen 2019 Chardonnay from Oak Knoll in Napa Valley. $27.99 a total wine. Okay, 92 points, wine.com. So it's a pretty solid wine. 13.2% alcohol by volume, which is kind of in line with what you would expect from a Chardonnay. So let's get started with this one right away and get kind of right into it. So typically, our wines are open 2 hours. This one is. And since it's a white wine, it's chilled a little bit, but it's not overly cold. So we can get a chance to taste all the nuances of this wine. So right away, it's a very light yellow color. Very clear. It doesn't have a whole lot of intensity in terms of a color profile. So let's give it a little bit of air and see what's going on. As we all know, I'm not a big white wine man. In fact, I would never order white wine for dinner unless I was forced. But to tell you the truth, some of the wines that we've had that are white have not been too bad. So hopefully this continues. We'll see. 92 points is a pretty strong score. So let's see if it lives up to it. I caught a little pineapple when I was just kind of aerating it a little bit. Let's see if there's any more of that. Yeah, there's definitely some pineapple. Maybe a little bit of either yellow apple or pear. Not so much, though. The pineapple is the predominant. There's certainly some alcohol on the nose. I'm not getting any citrus out of it, to be quite honest with you, but it's definitely on the tropical side. It's kind of tickling the very tip of my nose with the alcohol or the acid, whatever you want to call it. The pineapple is there. Maybe just a hint of orange peel. It's not crazy, but it's not as citrusy as I might have thought. So my thinking is that there might be something going on the palate that we're not catching on the nose. Let's give it one more try. It definitely has some vanilla or butter. Well, butter more than vanilla. Definitely some butter on the initial attack. I'm still tasting it. I'm getting a little bit of that tropical kind of background, not as pronounced as in the nose, but it's still there. There isn't a whole lot of acidity, but there's definitely some alcohol in there. I mean, it's kind of warming my throat a little bit, which is, I mean, this isn't a very high alcohol white wine. I mean, 13.2 isn't out of control, but it's on the higher side, and I can kind of taste it like I'm getting it. It's not out of balance. It's not out of balance, so it's not unpleasant, and it's not crowding out the pineapple and the butter. But there's definitely, I mean, there's definitely a strong butter. I would say the butter is starting to come forward as it's kind of lingering on my palate. I mean, I'm still tasting a little bit of that, which is good. A nice long finish is always something that you want. So that's excellent. Let me try a little more. If you remember a couple episodes back, when Alice was here, we tried the Falangina. And the Falangina from Italy had more weight, more body to it. So this is definitely a medium-bodied white wine, but it's on the light side of a medium body. So it's not super light and airy, but I mean, it has a little bit of, it coats your tongue a little bit, but it doesn't kind of weigh it down. And definitely, here comes more butter. Yeah, there isn't too much citrus. I would say maybe a little Meyer lemon on the palate, some pineapple, but that butter is kind of coming forward, which, frankly, to me is an obvious flavor in Napa Chardonnay. It's a little disappointing, actually. 92 points. I mean, 92 points is a strong score. And for a wine that is buttery and tropical and, you know, has a little bit, I mean, it's too strong a score. It's too strong a score. I'm sorry, wine.com. I'm going to have to disagree. While this isn't offensive, I wouldn't give it 92 points. 92 points is an exceptional wine. I mean, yeah, it's not 98 points, but this wine is a little bit overstated by wine.com. Gun to my head, 90 points. 90 points, drinkable. If you're a Chardonnay, if you're like a buttery Chardonnay person, but you want something that isn't like a mouthful, like a stick of butter in your mouth, then this is a good way to go. Because it's balanced. I mean, it's the predominant flavor, but there's other things going on. So it's not just a stick of butter shoved down your throat. So in that regard, it's good. So if you tend to like buttery Chardonnays, this is a nice, palatable way to go, without kind of going over the top with the, you know, with the butter and the brioche and all that kind of stuff. So good effort. I would say 90 points, a little bit too overstated by wine.com. And frankly, I didn't give the wine its due, so I should put that up to the camera there. Okay? Okay, now we have the Louis Martini Cabernet Sauvignon. This one's from Sonoma. So be very careful. They produce two Cabernets, one from Sonoma, one from Napa. The Napa one is a little bit more expensive. So depending on your stylistic choices, you're going to have to choose between Napa and Sonoma. And I'm reviewing the Sonoma one, so you might see the Napa one on a wine list and not have the Sonoma choice. So bear in mind that Louis Martini is a strong producer of, large volumes of wine. They're on a lot of wine lists. So it's typically a safe choice when you pick a Louis Martini. But you might not be getting the same experience that I'm getting here because yours might be a Napa. So keep that in mind. So having said that, I purchased this at Total Wine for $29.97, so $30. It's a 17 Cabernet from Alexander Valley from Sonoma. 92 points James Suckling, 90 points Wine Enthusiast. Having tasted a lot of Louis Martini, I know it gets a lot of good scores and people like it. And of course, there's varying degrees of labels. So it's not always an apples to apples comparison. But I'm curious to see what this is going to taste like. I feel like it's going to be closer to the 90 than the 92. It's just my general experience with Louis Martini. I've always been kind of like underwhelmed by the hype. But I'm going to keep an open mind and give this a shot. This one is 15 alcohol by volume. So that's a hefty wine. 15% alcohol by volume is, even for red wine, pretty strong. I've seen 15.5 in certain cabs, but you're getting up there. So let's see if the alcohol makes it unpleasant and kind of crowds out the flavors. So let's see what we got here. Well, right away, it's a pretty dark wine. I mean, it still has more garnet than black. So probably Bing cherry, dark cherry, maybe some black plum going on. I mean, I don't know what it's going to taste like. Let's take a look. Let's give it a little swirl here. Get our nose in here. Let's see what it tastes like. Well, let's smell it first. There's some definite leather on this one. It's got a nice color. Yeah, some leather for sure. Maybe a little currant, a little dark currant. But the nose isn't super expressive. I'm not getting a whole lot. That leather is really kind of coming forward and blocking out anything else. Oh, here comes your black cherry. Interesting. All right. Well, let's give it a try. Definitely dry. I'm puckering like nobody's business. So, which is no surprise from the leather note. So, I mean, initial impression is, probably 90 points. I mean, it's a decent wine. It's not great. I'm not really tasting too much on the fruit. You get a little bit of, how can I put it? Maybe a little bit of like plum, a little bit of that currant flavor. Definitely no blueberry, definitely no blackberry. A hint of dark cherry, but let's see. There's a little chocolate. The tannins are light. I mean, you're not getting a whole lot of grip. and it's not super heavy. It's definitely a medium-bodied Cabernet. And frankly, from Sonoma, I'm not surprised. Sonoma tends to be a little bit lighter. It's closer to the coast. Doesn't get quite as hot. Whereas Napa Valley tends to be higher elevations, tends to be more inland. It is more inland, so it gets hotter and drier. So I would say that this Louis Martini drinks like a Sonoma wine, except the alcohol and the dryness is like very pronounced. It's very pronounced. So I would be mad if I paid $30 for this in a wine store, and I did, so I'm mad. I mean, $30, I can do way better. I mean, we've done way better in front of this camera on YouTube. So, I mean, $29.97 is about $15 overpriced, in my opinion. So if you see the Sonoma on a wine list, run away. Okay, this is not a 90-point wine. This is an 87-point wine. 87 points. You've never heard me go that low. And I try not to go that low because I tend to be a little bit snobby, especially when it comes to red wine. So I try to be a little bit more kind, especially to the lower price wines, because I'm a little biased, I guess. I mean, having worked at Morton's and a couple other steakhouses, I mean, I'm used to very expensive wine, and, you know, sometimes the cheap ones, they get a little from me, which is not fair, because we've had some really good wines sub $30 since we started the channel. So I shouldn't really do that. But this wine deserves it. This wine is not worth $30 in a wine shop, which means you'd probably be paying north of $55 for this in a restaurant. Probably 65 to 70 given the price increases these days. So I don't know how the Napa drinks. I would imagine it drinks a bit more hefty, more dark, more fruit forward. But not having tasted it, I can tell you that this wine is not worth the money. 87 points. I don't know what James Suckling was smoking giving this 92 points. This is nuts. The tannins are not good. There's a little tobacco, there's a little leather. There's almost no fruit. I mean, a little bit of chocolate on the initial. I'm still tasting it, so there's a good long finish to it. Both of these wines had a good finish to them. I mean, they're both pretty solid in terms of like lingering your palate, but this is not fair. I'm sorry, it just isn't. That's misleading the public. It's not a great wine. In fact, it's a poor wine. I would pay $10 for this wine if I was pricing it. So stay away from the Louis Martini Sonoma from Alexander Valley. I'm not slamming the Napa. Let me be clear on that. I don't know what the Napa tastes like. This is the Sonoma, and maybe if the Napa is still hanging around the store, I might pick a bottle up for next week's episode and do like a comparison. But I will say that this wine is a disappointment. Okay, so we had the Trefethen, which I thought was about 90 points, so that's kind of solid. And then we had the Louis Martini from Alexander Valley, 87 points. Not a good wine. Definitely overpriced. Stay away. That's it for today. I have been and I am George with Wine by the Bay TV. Thanks for joining me tonight, and we'll see you again next time.